Hey, fifth graders, we're going to go ahead and take a look at multiplying fractions by fractions, and we are going to be using models today because it's really important. It really is so important to understand what is actually happening mathematically when you're multiplying fractions by fractions. So let's talk a little bit about that. Remember, when multiplying by a fraction, you are finding part of whatever that other number is, because fractions are parts. So if we're multiplying a fraction by a fraction, we are literally finding a part of a part. So we're going to have a portion of a thing, and then we'll take a portion of that portion, which will give us an even smaller portion. So let's take a look at some pictures, and because I think it'll make a lot of sense as to what we're doing. So we're going to go ahead and multiply 2/3 by 4/5. So I've got 2/3 shaded here, and we're going to be multiplying that by 4/5. And really what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking 2/3 of 4/5. So what we're going to do is we're going to overlap this. So I've got my 4/5 here. And what I need to do is I need to break this up into thirds because I need to take 2/3 of this amount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all of this into thirds. And that's how we've gotten over here. And we are going to shade in so we're going to go ahead and shade in 2/3. So if I wanted 2/3, I would be shading in these two strips. So the 2/3 of just the portion that I was looking at is now this shaded area right here, because what I've just done is, and I can go ahead and even ignore this little piece here, what I have just done is I have taken 2/3, this is 2/3 of the original yellow portion. So that ends up being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 15 total pieces. So your overlapped portion here is your product, and that ended up being 8 out of 15 total. Let's do another example because I know that might not be making all the sense in the world. So right now we have 3/7 because we have 3 out of 7 shaded. We need to find 3/7 of 1/4. How do I know that's a quarter? Because it's 1 out of 4 is shaded. So what we're going to do is we're going to overlap these pictures. So I'm going to go ahead, so that's quarters. So what we do is we're going to overlay this, and I'm going to be cutting this up into 7ths, and I'm going to take 3 of them and see how much I have. So when you overlap them, your image is going to look like this, and your overlapped portion is right here. That's 1, 2, 3 are shaded out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 1, 2, 3, 4, which is 28 total boxes. So your answer is 3/28. Now again, I want to actually right here, I kind of want to explain a little further. So I need to take 3/7 of this strip. So if I'm going to take 3/7 of this, I need to cut this up into 7ths. So I'm going to do my best here to create 7ths. There we go. So I just created 7 equal pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it tells me to take 3 of those 7. Boom. I now have 1, 2, 3 of these really tiny pieces. Now I need to know what those tiny pieces are compared to the whole thing, which is why we extend these lines so that we have all equal pieces. So now I know that this is 3 out of the 28 total equal pieces. So let's start generating some of these models ourselves. So let's go ahead and create a model to represent 1/4 times half. So let's go ahead and we can model 1/4 first. So I'm going to cut it in half and cut my halves in half. So 1/4 is this right here. I need to take half of this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half like this. So I've literally just created half, and I'm going to shade half of that because I literally just took half of 1/4, and I kind of flip-flopped the order. Half of a quarter is this small piece. Now I need to know, well, what is this small piece compared to the whole thing? The only way to know what it is compared to the whole thing is if I extend this line, and I've now created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal pieces, and that is 1 out of 8 equal pieces. Your answer is 1/8. So 1/4 times 1/2 is indeed 1/8. That I took half, and I wanted you to draw these pictures because this is your quarter strip right here. This is your quarter strip, and you are taking half of this quarter strip, which ends up being 1/8 of the total diagram. Let's look at another example together. So the next one we're going to do is 1/3 times 3/4. So we're first going to start out by modeling a third. So let's go ahead and break this up into 3 equal pieces. Now I need to take, and shade it in. So that's 1/3. I need to take 3/4. I need to create 3/4 of this strip right here. So I'm going to create quarters. 1, 2, 3 lines creates quarters. And I'm going to go ahead and extend those lines so that I know what my pieces are out of the whole thing. So I've got 3/4. I need to shade in 3 of these. 1, 2, 3. Because I've now just taken 3/4 of my original 1/3. So this ends up being 1, 2, 3 out of 12 equal pieces. So I've just created 3/12. We can go ahead and simplify this. This ends up being 1/4 as my final answer. Let's do another together because I think the more that we do of this, the more it'll make some more sense. So the next one we're going to do is we're going to do 3/4 times 2/5. So let's start out by creating quarters. And we're going to start with 3 of these. 1, 2, 3. So this is the portion I'm concerned about. So I want you to envision like you show up to a party, there's a cake on the table, and there's 3/4 of the cake sitting there. And you decide, hey, I'm going to take 2/5 of this cake. So what you need to do is, we're looking at this portion here is what we have to deal with. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break up this section into fifths because I'm going to take 2/5. So I need 4 lines will create 5 equal pieces. And I'm going to take 2 of these strips in blue. 1, 2. Now I need to know, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. That is 6 pieces. But that's 6 pieces out of how many total pieces that make up the whole thing? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times 5 is 30. We have just taken 6 out of 30 pieces, which is equivalent to 1/5 of the entire cake that was sitting there. We got a couple more we'll do together. We've got 1/2 times 2/3. We're going to start by modeling half. So there's half of a cake sitting there when you show up to the party. Somebody says, hey, go ahead, help yourself to 2/3 of what's left. So what you need to do is you need to create thirds out of this piece right here. And you're going to take 2 of them because somebody gave you permission to do so. You just took 2/3. So you did just take 2 pieces, but we want to know you took 2 pieces out of how many total in comparison to the whole thing. So we're going to extend those lines. 1, 2 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal pieces. So you took, in comparison to the whole thing, you took 1/3 of the whole cake. And we've got one more example together, and we'll take a look at the shortcut. I think a lot of you are already recognizing the shortcut, and we will get there, but I really want to emphasize what's happening when taking parts of part of a thing. Multiplying fractions. So let's start by modeling 1/6. So I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'm going to cut those halves into thirds to create 6 pieces, and we're dealing with one of them. So I've got 1/6 here, and I'm going to take half. I'm going to take half of that 1/6. So I've taken one piece out of how many total equal pieces that make up the whole thing? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. That ends up being 1/12. So if you're taking half of a sixth, because you are multiplying 1/6 times half, you have taken a total of 1/12 out of the whole thing. Again, we're going to look at the shortcut tomorrow, but I really wanted to provide visuals so you can firmly understand what's happening when you multiply fractions.